Hey, oh, Mr. Chair, thank you so much. It's quite an honour to be able to take the call. Look, I want to start by first of all acknowledging the comments by Mr. Peni Henare when he said that small things do make a big difference. And I absolutely agree. Mr. Chair, for almost 20 years I worked in the community of Glen Innes for a number of years. Which had the largest state housing stock in New Zealand at one stage. Almost 2,500 homes were there. Mr. Chair, I know that in working with the families and with children and the young people in that community with a small trust and wanting to meet their needs, I know, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair, that there are many times that there were cold homes that I went into. There were homes in which there were people that were struggling, where there was poverty, where there were issues there. And Mr. Chair, while the talk on the other side talks about housing, poverty and health conditions, I saw all these three things. And under a Labour government of 9 years, Mr. Chair, not once did I see any change in that. I can name the streets. Fenwick Ave, that's there. Flanders, Ropata. These are the places that are streets with houses that families were in. And Mr. Chair, not once did I see in those 9 years insulation going into those homes, addressing the issues of poverty, that even the Salvation Army State of the Nation report talked about that needed to happen. But Mr. Chair, I'm talking about the bill here in committee stage. And what is really important, Mr. Chair, is about the issues, and I want to address the issues around insulation. Because talking about insulation, there's been the outcry of the fact is that this doesn't meet the standard. I understand many of these members may not have had the report. We know that the Brands had a report in a survey, so it said there was 450,000 homes that are out there that needed some form of insulation. When Mr. O'Rourke talked about the sense of this uniformed ability, well, if he had read the report, he'd realise at least 100,000 of those homes are unable to be insulated because of the physical dimensions. Mr. Chair, I want to point to the insulation that's been making its way around the opposition benches of the two different sizes. Now, having come from a construction background, Mr. Speaker, as an electrician of trade, what I can say to you is this. While they can bandy around and show two different forms, what they won't understand is this. To truly insulate a property in a home, it's like, for instance, you need to think about a chili bin or like a cooler itself. In order to get their 100% insulation, you need to make sure it's watertight, it's airtight. Now, you can't do that, but what you can do is move towards that. It's double glazing in windows. It's insulation in ceilings and in the floor. And that's what this government is moving to. That's what this bill is moving to in the best reasonable and rational point of view, Mr. Chair, in what it's doing. What do we say when to the point of the insulation from 1978? Well, there was an energy performance survey that was done in which it clearly states this. Obviously, from 1978, the ceiling of the insulation that was installed to the new standard of 2008. When the opposition talk about it, they'll keep holding up the two different levels. So if you take that, the technical aspect, not just your own philosophy or ideology, the technical issue is this. That from that form of insulation to this form of insulation, right, the efficacy and the efficiencies that you would try to gain is not there. As long as it retains itself from that standard of 1978, okay, to try and include that is not there. So the technical aspect of saying, of holding the differences does not weigh up. Let's go a little bit further than that, because the Brands report clearly states this. The average cost of insulation is $3,400 per home, ceiling and floor, right? So therefore, if you were to upgrade that form of insulation and to try and get it back to what you would call the standard of 2008, what is the cost? $2,800 on average. So where is the cost saving in that? There is none. There is no cost saving. But here's the question that Mr. O'Rourke put then, that will that cost go back to the tenants? Of course it won't. Mr. O'Rourke needs to realise this. Over 70% to almost 80% of current landlords in New Zealand are who? They're mum and dad investors with one rental property. That's the average. They're good people that are out in our communities who want to do the right thing, who are doing the right thing. That's what we're saying inside of this. So if we're going to try and create a uniformed response to try and make sure that everyone has to impose these costs, mum and dad and average investors will simply say this: we have to push this cost onto the tenant. Mr. Speaker, that's not rational, that's not reasonable. That's the reason why we believe the standards that we're taking are making a difference. Mr. Chair, I just want to make some other comments in regards to regulation powers that are inside the bill. There was the issue around ventilation. The Building Home and Improvement Regulations of 1947 clearly state the fact is that their households need to provide adequate ventilation and also heating that's inside of that. The question was asked to MB and they looked and reviewed this. What clearly came back from MB was this, that the cost that is incurred will be passed on to the tenant, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Call Jacinda Ardern.
Thank you.